Her scream split the timberline as the grizzly reared, claws black with pine sap. A shadow struck, spear biting deep, roar shaking the valley. The bear crashed. The girl stumbled backward into arms that weren't hers. The Apache chief looked down at her pale, terrified face and said only 4 words, "You're my wife now." But what would that mean? For her, for him, for the 50 riders already hunting her down. The bear's bulk still twitched on the forest floor, blood steaming into moss. The air stank of iron and pine pitch. She pressed herself against the bark of a fallen spruce, hands trembling, dress torn to ribbons. The man who had saved her knelt by the carcass, pulling his spear free with a grunt. He was tall, shoulders roped with scars, hair bound tight with a strip of deerskin. His face was calm, unreadable, as though killing a grizzly were no different from splitting wood. "You're hurt." His English was rough, heavy. She shook her head too quickly, her chest heaving. No, only." Her eyes darted to the bear, then to him. "You killed it?" He wiped the spearhead on moss. "It wanted you. Now it feeds fire." She pressed her fists into her dress to still the shaking. She had run blind into these trees, fleeing the men who had dragged her wagon off the trail. Outlaws, half-drunk, spitting when they saw her pale hair. She had slipped the rope on her wrists, bolted into the dark. She hadn't seen the bear until it reared. Now here she was, saved not by law, not by her people, but by an Apache chief whose name she didn't know. He studied her, eyes narrowing. "Why alone? Where is your camp?" "They—" Her throat caught. "They took it. Burned it. I don't know if anyone—" She bit down on the rest, refusing to cry. The chief stood. He was broad as the pines behind him, his shadow stretching over her. "Then you are no one's." Her breath hitched. "No. I have family. They'll find me." He tilted his head, the barest trace of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Family does not find this deep. Only wolves and bears." He paused, then added, "And me." She pushed back against the log as he stepped closer. "Whitey, why did you help me?" He planted the spear butt in the soil, the point gleaming red. "A man takes what he sees. The bear saw you. So did I." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" He crouched suddenly, close enough that she could smell the smoke in his hair, the leather and earth. His voice was quiet, steady. "You're my wife now." The words rang like a strike of flint, sharp, sparking fear. I don't belong to you," she stammered, trying to stand. But his hand came up, not rough, not cruel, just final. "You belong to the one who saves your breath," he said simply. "Tonight, that was me." She froze, heart hammering. Was it a claim, a promise, a sentence? Before she could answer, the crack of rifles echoed through the trees. Men's voices carried shouts, curses, the metallic jingle of spurs. Her eyes went wide. "They're coming, the outlaws. They followed me." The chief's jaw set. He rose, spear leveled toward the sound. His other hand closed around her wrist, not gently. "You run again, you die," he said. "Stay with me, maybe not." She stared at him, torn between terror and the strange pull of his certainty. The forest held its breath, shadows shifting. The grizzly's body steamed at their feet, and somewhere beyond the ridge, men with rifles were closing fast, shouting about a pale-haired girl and laughing like they already owned her. The shouts grew sharper, rifles clattering as brush snapped under boots. Lantern light flickered between the trees. The chief didn't flinch. He shoved the girl gently but firmly behind the spruce log. "Down. Quiet." She pressed herself into the bark, breath shallow, heart drumming in her ears. She could smell the bear's blood thick in the air, smoke from torches curling above the ferns. The first outlaw burst into view, a long coat, hat low, pistol out. He stumbled on the carcass and cursed. "Hell, boys, it's dead!" He kicked the grizzly's paw, laughing. "Looks like somebody beat us to her." Another voice, high and mean. "She's close. I seen her hair in the moonlight." The chief shifted his spear into both hands. He waited. The girl tried to press lower. A twig snapped beneath her boot. One outlaw's head whipped toward the sound. "There, behind the log." He rushed forward. The chief moved faster. He lunged from the shadows, spear thrust low. The steel point slammed through the man's thigh and out the back, pinning him to the dirt. The outlaw screamed, dropped his pistol. The others roared, rifles lifting, shots cracked. Bark exploded over the girl's head. She cried out, hands clamped to her ears. The chief didn't give them a second shot. He dragged the wounded man up like a shield and rushed, spear jerking free with a wet sound. Bullets tore into the body as he barreled forward. 2 men fell back, swearing. Another swung his rifle like a club. The chief caught it on the shaft of his spear, twisted, ripped it from the man's hands, then drove the butt into his chest so hard the outlaw folded with a grunt. "Get him!" someone screamed. The girl's terror broke free. "Stop! Please!" Her cry only drew their eyes sharper. "There she is!" One outlaw leveled his pistol at her. The flash was white in the dark, but the shot never landed. The chief's hand snapped out, catching the barrel in mid-fire. Powder scorched his palm, but he wrenched the weapon sideways, slammed his elbow into the man's face. Blood sprayed. "Run!" the girl gasped. He ignored her. His voice came steady, low, in English, thick as stone. "No, they run!" As if on cue, a howl ripped the timberline. Wolves, drawn by the blood. Yellow eyes flashed in the lantern glow. Shadows flowed between trunks. The outlaws froze, muttering curses, rifles swinging from wolves to chief to girl. "Hell with this," one spat. "She ain't worth a pack's teeth." But another snarled, "She's worth more than gold." His eyes shone greedy in the torchlight. "Boss said bring her breathing, and we bring her." The wolves padded closer, lips curled, growls humming like a drumbeat. The chief lifted his spear, the girl at his back. His voice rolled calm. "Choose wolves' teeth or mine." The outlaws looked at each other, jittering between courage and terror. One broke. He fired blind into the dark, hitting nothing. The wolves answered with a chorus that rattled the trees. The girl clutched the chief's arm, trembling. "They won't stop. They'll kill us." He glanced at her once, eyes steady. "Not you. Not while I breathe." A wolf sprang. Chaos tore through the clearing. Gunfire, snarls, men shouting. The chief pulled her close, dragging her toward the dark cut of the ridge. His words hit her ear like an oath and a sentence all at once. "You're my wife now. That means you follow." The forest erupted behind them, wolves snapping, rifles cracking, men cursing as lanterns toppled into pine needles. Fire licked low at the ground, smoke curling. The girl stumbled as the chief yanked her by the wrist, pulling her into the ridge's shadow. "Faster," he said, voice rough but steady. Her skirt snagged on bramble. She tore free, panting. "I can't—" "You can." His grip tightened, dragging her until the slope swallowed them both in shadow. Behind, an outlaw screamed, long, choked off by snarls. Another voice shouted, "Hold the line, hold!" then cut short. The wolves had chosen. She looked back once, eyes wide at the lanterns thrashing like fireflies in a jar, at the chaos of men and beasts. "They're dying." "They chose wrong," the chief said. He didn't look back. Branches slapped her arms, stones tore her shoes. She tried to slow, but his hand clamped her forward. "Please," she begged. "Where are you taking me?" "To where fire won't find us." She stumbled again, crashing to her knees. The chief stopped, crouched beside her. His face was calm, unreadable, but his breath came heavy. "Up," he ordered. "I can't." He hooked an arm under her legs and lifted her like a child. She gasped, fists pressing against his chest. "Put me down." He kept walking, steady as a mule, his spear dragging in his other hand. "No." "Why?" she demanded, voice breaking. His eyes flicked to hers, dark and unshaken. "Because my wife doesn't crawl." Her throat went dry. "I am not—" "You are." His tone held no anger, just fact. The night closed around them. Owls calling far, wolves still howling near. The chief's steps didn't falter. She felt the heat of him through the torn cotton of her dress, the rhythm of his heart under scars. Finally she whispered, "Why call me that? Wife, you don't even know my name." He shifted her weight, spear still steady in his hand. "Name is not breath. I saved your breath. That makes the bond." She shook her head. tears blurring. Where I come from, a wife chooses. A man asks. He doesn't take. He glanced at her, almost curious. Did you choose the bear? Did you choose the men who tied your hands? She bit her lip, silent. He walked on. No. You choose the one who fights for you. Tonight, that is me. Silence pressed between them. She turned her face away, ashamed of the relief she felt in the iron certainty of his words. Minutes stretched. The forest thinned, opening to a shelf of stone where moonlight silvered the valley. Smoke drifted below, faint, far. The wolves' howls had faded, or maybe been drowned by distance. He set her down gently against the rock. Here we rest. Dawn comes soon. She leaned back, chest heaving. And when dawn comes, what then? He crouched, spear across his knees, eyes scanning the dark. Then you walk behind me. My shadow covers yours. She stared at him, torn between fury and the strange safety curling inside her chest. And if I refuse? His head turned, gaze heavy on hers. Then the forest takes you back. He paused. Bear, wolf, or men with torches, they wait. The words hit harder than threats ever had. She shivered, clutching her torn dress. What if your people don't want me? A flicker of something, pride or challenge, touched his mouth. They don't choose. I choose. That is enough. The fire in her chest warred with fear, with gratitude, with something she didn't want to name. She pulled her knees up, whispering into the night, and if I never learn to be what you call me. The chief leaned back against the stone, spear across his lap. His voice came low, final. Then you will still be mine. Above them, the stars wheeled, cold and endless. Below, the valley smoldered where wolves and men still fought. And in the stone hollow of the ridge, a white girl who had been no one, and an Apache chief who had lost nothing, yet sat side by side, bound by a word that had already changed both their fates. Dawn crept pale over the ridge, staining the cliffs in pink and ash. The girl's eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she hadn't dared close them. Each time her head dipped, the chief's voice cut through the dark like a blade. Stay awake. Wolves hunt the drowsy. Now the wolves were gone, but the men weren't. Smoke plumes rose in the valley, torches still searching, voices faint but crawling closer. The chief rose with the light, rolling his shoulders. He looked down at her, unreadable. We move. Her legs trembled when she stood. She braced against the stone, whispering, How far? As far as your breath lasts. Then farther. He didn't wait. He started down a narrow deer trail, carved into the ridge. She stumbled after him, clutching her skirts. Below, the shouts grew clearer. The outlaws had survived the wolves, their voices carried in cruel fragments. Find the girl? She owes us a fortune. Shoot the redskin first. She froze at the sound, terror flooding her chest. They'll kill us. The chief didn't turn. Not if we reach my people first. Her heart skipped. Your village? Yes. She clutched the rock harder. What if they don't want me? He stopped then, half turning, the morning sun catching the scars across his cheek. His eyes were steady, hard. They don't choose. I do. The words cut through her fear, strange and solid. He turned again, descending the path. By midday they reached a stream, its water flashing cold over stone. She knelt to drink, cupping her hands, but his voice stopped her. Not there. He pointed to a quiet pool upstream, where the water ran clear. There, or you drink sickness. She moved, obeying without thought, until the realization struck her. She glanced up. Why do you care if I sicken? He crouched, filling his flask. A wife who cannot walk is a weight. Her throat tightened. So it's only duty to you. His gaze lifted to hers. For the first time, something like heat burned there. It is breath, duty, shadow, all the same. She looked away, flustered, dipping her face into the cold water. They walked again, the forest thinning. Hills rolled wider, the sun climbing high. The chief scanned the horizon constantly, every crow's wing, every break of brush under hoof. Near afternoon, a shadow appeared ahead, smoke twisting above a distant stand of cottonwood. The girl's pulse leapt. "Is that—" He raised a hand for silence. He studied the smoke long, then nodded once. "My people." Relief washed over her. And then, the dread. What would they see in her pale skin, her torn dress, her foreign tongue? She grabbed his arm. "What will you tell them?" He looked at her hand on him, then at her eyes. "The truth." Her breath caught. "That I'm your—" "Yes," he said simply. Her knees weakened. She whispered, "What if they don't believe?" His jaw set, calm as stone. "Then they will learn." They reached the cottonwoods by dusk. Smoke drifted from fire pits. Children's laughter echoed faint and fleeting. Women ground corn with stone pestles, their eyes lifting as the pair stepped into view. The village stilled. Tools stilled. Laughter died. Dozens of eyes fixed on her, pale, ragged, standing in the shadow of their chief. A man stepped forward, tall, lean, his chest marked with paint. He looked at the chief, then at her. His words were sharp, in Apache. The chief answered in kind, voice steady. The man's face hardened. He spat in the dirt. The girl's hands shook. "What did he say?" The chief looked at her, then back at his people. He spoke louder now, voice ringing clear. She didn't understand the words, but she felt the weight. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Women covered their mouths. Children whispered. The painted man snarled. The girl's throat went dry. She gripped her dress. "What did you tell them?" The chief turned his face to her, eyes locked on hers. His English came rough but clear. "I told them you are my wife." The painted man shouted, fury spilling. Spears lifted. The crowd pressed closer. The girl's pulse hammered. She wanted to run, but the chief's hand closed around hers like iron. He stepped forward, planting himself between her and the spears. His voice thundered in Apache, rolling like storm over stone. The spears hesitated. The crowd murmured. Children clutched mothers' skirts. The girl whispered, "They hate me." "They fear you," he corrected. His grip tightened. "Because I chose you." The painted man spat again, stepping close, face twisted with rage. He jabbed a finger at her chest, shouting words she couldn't catch, but she knew their meaning. "Not one of us." The chief didn't flinch. He raised his spear high, point to the sky. His words cut the air like a blade. The village went silent. Breath held. The girl's knees shook. She whispered, "What now?" The chief's eyes never left his rival's. "Now," he said, "they decide if they fear me more than they hate you." Spears tilted like a thicket in wind. The painted man stepped so close, she could see a nick on his front tooth. His eyes burned. He spoke fast, hard, never looking at her like she was a person, only a spark fallen where it shouldn't. The chief didn't lift his spear. He planted it. "Enough," he said in his own tongue, voice low but carried. The murmurs thinned. An elder woman moved through the crowd with a walking stick and calm that bent heads, silver hair braided with blue thread. Her gaze touched the girl's torn dress, the blood on her hem, the bear fat clinging to the chief's spear. She asked a short question. The chief answered with 3 words. The woman's mouth tightened, but she nodded. She tapped the painted man's chest with the stick, sharp. He bit back another shout. The girl's fingers dug into the chief's hand. "What is she saying?" "Grandmother of the fire," he said. "She keeps the rules from breaking. She hears first." The elder faced the girl now. Her eyes were not kind, but they were not knives. She spoke a single word in Apache, then one in halting English. "Water?" The girl swallowed. "Yes." "A boy ran with a gourd." The elder held it, not offering, waiting. The girl reached. The elder did not release. The moment stretched. The chief's hand loosened on the girl's. He didn't help. The girl understood. She looked at the elder, not away. "Thank you," she said. She dipped her head once, slow. The elder released the gourd. The girl drank only a mouthful and handed it back. "For children," she said, voice small but clear. Something flickered in the elder's eyes. The stick clicked twice on packed earth. Women eased a fraction. The painted man snorted, "Tricks!" The chief turned to him. Their words picked up speed, cutting and clean. The painted man spread his hands wide as if to show the sky witnesses. He jabbed a finger toward the hills, toward the pale girl. He slammed his palm to his own chest. Tradition, bride gifts, winter hunger. War he could not feed if the chief fed a stranger. The chief's answer was not a speech. He lifted the spear, turned its bloody tip so the village could see. "Bear," he said in English for her, then added a string of Apache that rolled like a drum. The crowd rippled. The elder's chin tipped. The girl heard the word as it passed from mouth to mouth. Grizzly. The weight of it settled even on those who had not seen its size. In his band it meant right, claim, guardianship, paid in risk. The painted man spat in the dust. "Bear is bear," he snapped, switching to English, eyes cutting to her. "Not bride." He tapped his own temple. "Law sits here, not in teeth," a child cried. A woman hushed him. The elder raised her stick, and the field of faces stilled again. She pointed at the girl's wrists, bruised from ropes. She asked a question with only a hand. "Who tied you?" "Men," the girl said. "Not from here." She pointed back toward the burned valley. "They took the wagons. They came for me." The painted man lifted his chin. "Her trouble follows her. Brings fire, soldiers, paper. We break for her. We break forever." The chief stepped closer. "We do not break. We choose." "You choose for all," the man shot back. He swept his arm at the circle. "Then show them your winter meat. Show them your extra horses. Show them your knife for soldiers' letters." The chief's jaw worked once. No answer offered itself that could be eaten. The silence that followed had teeth of its own. The girl found herself speaking into it before fear could stop her. "I can work," she said, voice too small for the number of eyes. "I can carry water. I can sew. I can—" She stopped, throat tight. "I can learn." The painted man's laugh was not long. "She eats while she learns." The elder watched the girl, unreadable. Then her eyes slid to a small figure near the cook fire, a boy whose ankle was swollen, skin glossy with heat. She pointed her stick at the girl's hands. "You sew." The girl blinked. "Yes." The elder jerked her chin. "Show." A woman pulled a split moccasin from a basket. The girl took it with shaking fingers, dropped to her knees by the fire, and threaded sinew through an awl hole. Her stitches were clumsy at first, then straightened. She braced the leather with her body like she'd done it in another life. The elder's stick clicked once, approval measured in a single sound. The painted man sneered, but some of the set in his shoulders loosened. Men lowered spear tips an inch. The air, which had been all edge, found a seam of breath. Then a scout burst from the brush, breath torn, dust on his braid. His words came fast, falling over each other. Soldiers, smoke, a rope of riders behind them. The elder's face didn't move, but her hand tightened on the stick. The painted man turned back to the chief with fresh fire in his mouth. "Do you hear? Wolves that wear boots. They hunt us because you brought a trail to our door." Mothers pulled children close. Men shifted, feeling for arrows, for the shape of a plan. The chief looked at the hills, at the line of cottonwoods that would betray camp with its green. He looked at his people, at the girl who was not their people by any name but his. His voice when it came was a rope thrown, not soft. "Break the fires. Pack. We move the small ones first." The painted man stepped in front of him, blocking the path. "We move because you say a pale girl is wife." The chief's eyes changed. Not hotter, colder. "We move because I see dust, and dust means men, and men means iron." "You wish to argue with dust?" The elder lifted her stick between them like a narrow gate. Her few words were enough to make both men step half a pace back. Then she pointed at the girl. "If wife, she carry—" The girl nodded too fast. "Yes." The elder thrust a bundle at her, corn cakes, a pouch of salt, a strip of dried meat. "For old ones." She pointed to two grandmothers by the far fire. "You follow them. You do not talk. You do not slow." The girl rose, arms full, heart slamming. She looked once at the chief. He looked back, nothing in his eyes but a command that felt like a promise. "You walk in my shadow," he said, "even when I am ahead." The painted man barked to his own kin, snapping orders. Spears came up again, but this time they pointed outward. Boys kicked coals flat. Women shouldered bundles. The small river of a camp remembered how to move like water. The elder's stick tapped the dirt 3 times. The sound traveled the ring. Go. The girl fell in behind the grandmother's. The bundle was heavier than it had looked. She gripped it harder. No one spoke to her. No one struck her either. That felt like more than yesterday had given. She chanced one look back. The chief stood on the edge of the cottonwoods, watching the ridge the scout had pointed to. The painted man stood at his shoulder because the shape of danger had forced him there. For one breath they looked like 2 edges of the same blade. Then a glint winked from the far slope. Sun on something that preferred shade. The scout's shout flew. Men lifted bows. The girl tucked her chin and walked. Behind her, the first bullet found bark where a child's head had been a moment before. Wood spat. Women didn't scream. They moved. The elder's stick tapped once more, faster, and the village began to thread itself into the trees, quiet as prey, quick as hunters. A second bullet sang. A horse cried somewhere out of sight. The girl did not look back again. She didn't have a hand to spare. But the sound that came next made every shoulder in the line flinch. A bugle, thin, wrong in the green, calling men who carried paper as if it were a gun. The bugle's wail bounced between cottonwoods, sharp and alien in the quiet that had been theirs. Birds burst from branches. Children stiffened. Even the elders' faces tightened. Sound like that meant walls of men with iron in their fists. The chief raised his spear and barked in Apache. The river of the camp split, hunters to the left, women and children to the right. Fires were already ash, but every eye knew the bugle meant they had been marked. The girl stumbled under her bundle, nearly dropping the pouch of salt. A grandmother hissed, steadying her elbow with one thin arm, then shoved her forward again. No comfort, only necessity. Behind, the painted man spat into the dust. "I warned you," he told the chief. "You bring soldiers to our fire. For her." The chief didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on the ridgeline where the bugle had cried. "Argue after dust settles. Now we move." The girl's chest heaved as she kept pace with the grandmother's. Every step jarred her shoulders. She bit her lip till it bled, forcing herself not to stumble again. Voices rolled down from the ridge. Orders. Boots. The clatter of canteens. The soldiers were close. A boy ran back along the line, eyes wide. "They have horses," he panted, "and wagons. They come fast." The painted man grinned without humor. "Your wife will slow us. Leave her. We gain time." The girl's legs faltered at his words, but she didn't stop. She hugged the bundle tighter, whispering to herself, "Don't fall, don't fall." The chief turned on his rival, voice like stone cracking. "We don't leave what we claim." "She's not ours," the man snarled. "She's mine," the chief said, louder, so every ear in the line heard. The crowd muttered, low and sharp. Women glanced at her, some with pity, some with suspicion, all with fear. The elder's stick rapped against a trunk. Silence rippled back. She pointed her chin toward the girl. "If wife, she walks." The girl swallowed hard and kept moving. Her feet blistered, her dress torn, but she walked. Ahead, the trail narrowed into a cut of stone, perfect for ambush. Hunters slid into brush, boughs knocked. The chief scanned the line, then barked at Scarface, his second. "Hold the cut. Buy time." Scarface spat, nodded, and melted into shadow with 5 men. The girl reached the pass with the grandmothers. She turned once, breath burning, just in time to see the first soldiers crest the ridge, blue coats flashing, rifles catching sun. Gunfire cracked. Men shouted. Horses screamed. The painted man shoved forward, yelling, "Faster! Run, run!" The line surged, children carried, bundles dropped, salt spilled. The girl's bundle nearly tore from her arms. She clutched it tighter, teeth bared. The chief's hand closed on her shoulder, steadying her. "Keep with them. Don't stop." "I can't." "You can," he said, the same as in the night. Behind, Scarface's men fired, fell, fired again. Smoke thickened. The bugle wailed once more. Closer now. The girl's throat locked. "They'll catch us." The chief looked down at her, eyes unreadable. "Then they'll learn what it means when I say you're mine." They broke from the cut into open meadow. The camp spilled across it, scattering toward tree line on the far side. Spears glinted, arrows hissed, children cried once and were hushed. The bugle screamed again. Soldiers poured into the cut, blue wall bristling with rifles. The painted man shouted over the chaos, "See, her curse brings them. She kills us with her breath." The elder's stick cracked against the earth. 3 times. Sharp. Final. The noise cut like a knife. She lifted her chin, eyes sweeping the meadow. "No curse," she said in English, rough but heavy. She pointed at the girl. "Choice." Every face turned. Even the rifles seemed to pause in their thunder. The girl froze under the weight of their stares, mud on her dress, blood on her lip, bundle clutched to her chest. She wanted to vanish. But the elder's gaze held her, demanded. The chief stepped close, voice low enough for only her. "Now you speak. Wife or not? If you claim, they carry you. If you don't, they drop you here." Her breath rattled in her chest. "And if I say no?" His eyes didn't leave hers. "Then you're alone again." Rifles cracked. Horses screamed. Men shouted. The meadow swayed with dust and fear. The girl lifted her chin. Her voice trembled but carried, "I stay. I walk. I'm his." The meadow held still for a heartbeat. Then the circle of hunters roared. Arrows loosed. Spears raised. Voices echoing against stone. The village surged forward as one, no longer scattered, but a river with teeth. The painted man spat, furious, but he did not step out of line. Even he had heard the word made into bond, and behind them, soldiers charged into the meadow, bugle screaming again, closer, louder, certain. The meadow exploded. Bluecoats broke from the cut, rifles cracking in volleys that tore grass and bark. Arrows hissed back, thin and fast. The bugle split the air again, shrill as a knife. "Tree line," the chief barked. "Small ones first." Women ran low, children tight to hips, bundles bouncing. Hunters fell back in pairs, loosing, stepping, loosing again. The painted man took the left flank, face hard, orders sharp even through his fury. The girl staggered with the grandmothers, bundle biting her arms. Shots kicked dirt at her feet. She didn't look. She kept pace. A boy stumbled. The elder snapped her stick down to block him from falling, then thrust the stick at the girl. "Take." The girl shoved her bundle under one arm and took the wood with the other, steadying the boy with her shoulder. "Walk," she told him. "Don't look." Ahead, a stand of firs promised cover. Between here and there lay open ground and a scatter of rocks big enough to trip on. The bugle screamed, "Advance!" Boots pounded. A lieutenant rode at the blue front, jaw tight, voice clean. "Hold line! Fix bayonets!" Steel flashed. The men came on, neat and sure. "Down!" the chief shouted. His hunters dropped to one knee as one. Arrows lifted and fell, lifted and fell. Horses screamed. The lieutenant's mount plunged. He kicked free, came up at a run, soared high. The girl's legs burned. The elder kept pace, face unreadable, feet sure. The boy between them sobbed once and swallowed it. A soldier broke from the line and sprinted toward the moving families, rifle at the hip. The painted man cut across him like a gate swinging shut, spear low. Steel met wood. The soldier tumbled, breath flying. The painted man didn't finish him. He ran on, jaw clenched, guarding the gap. "White girl!" a corporal yelled, eyes locking on her hair. "Here, this way, you're safe." The girl kept walking. "I'm not," she said, breathless. "I'm his." The corporal blinked, confused by a sentence he'd never been taught. He lifted his rifle anyway. The chief appeared between them, sudden as a stone. His spear butt cracked the man's wrist. The rifle flew. The chief didn't look back. "Tree line," he told the girl. Now. She went. The elder went. The boy went, limping but upright. A shot snapped. Bark leapt from a fir ahead. Another whined past the girl's ear and vanished into shadow. The elder's stick rapped her hip. Eyes. She focused on a notch in the nearest trunk. On the next. "Steps," she told the boy. "Count them." He did. Small voice steadying itself by numbers. Behind, Scarface's men peeled from the rocks and ran. The space they left filled with blue. The bugle called, "Charge!" Bayonets lowered. "Break!" the chief roared. His hunters split, drawing the charge into two thin lanes that led to nothing but scrub and bad footing. The lieutenant saw it too late. His line tripped itself. Neat turned clumsy. Pretty turned deadly. The painted man laughed once, sharp. Now! He and two others sent arrows into boot leather and reins. Men fell without dying. It was enough. The line stuttered. The girl hit the furs. Shade swallowed heat. The elder shoved her deeper. There, a pocket among roots big as a bowl. Old ones here. They slid the boy in. He curled, eyes wide but not wild. The elder turned on the girl. "Back." She jabbed the stick at the open. "Carry." The girl nodded. She ran out again, legs jelly, arms numb. She found a woman with a baby and a basket, and took the basket without asking. "Go," she said. "I'll bring it." Rifles thundered. A bullet hit the earth at her ankle and spun her half around. She didn't fall. She ran on, lungs tearing. The lieutenant crashed into the furs with two squads, face set for righteous work. He barked, "Seize the white girl, disarm the rest, no killing unless—" An arrow pinned his coat to a trunk. He jerked free with a snarl. "Advance!" Two soldiers lunged at the girl. The painted man got there first, spear flashing, stopping chest without breaking it. "Back!" he snarled at her. "You slow us." She didn't. She shoved the basket at him. "You're faster. Carry it." He stared like she'd slapped him. Then he took it and ran. The chief slammed into a bayonet man and turned the blade aside with his shaft, stepped in, and drove his shoulder into the soldier's chest. The man folded, air gone. The chief pivoted without looking, palm up. "Here." The girl understood. She slapped a fresh shaft into his hand from a quiver lying open. He didn't thank her. He didn't need to. He moved, and she moved with him for 3 steps, then peeled off when the elder's stick rapped again, calling her to another burden. "Wife!" the chief barked once, his not looking. "Shadow!" "I'm here," she answered, grabbing the arm of a grandmother who had fallen, dragging her toward the bowl among roots. The lieutenant reached the edge of the families, eyes catching on the girl again. "Stop," he shouted. "You're under army protection now." She met his gaze, chest heaving. "I chose." He faltered. Orders didn't cover that. A blue sleeve to his right didn't falter. The rifle rose, muzzle black. "Target," the private yelled, finger white on the trigger. The chief saw the angle, too far to block, too close to kill the hand first. He moved anyway, a step that wouldn't get there in time. The elder lifted her stick and threw it, harder than bone should throw. It smacked the rifle just as it cracked. The shot went wild, licking bark. The private swore. The elder reached for another weapon and found none. She squared her old shoulders anyway, lips a thin line. The lieutenant grabbed the private's barrel and yanked it down. "Hold your fire." "Sir, she's a child," he snapped, then hated himself for how small that truth sounded in a forest full of bigger ones. A horn answered the bugle from deeper in the trees, not army brass, a low bone whistle that meant close ranks. The hunters tightened. The painted man reappeared at the chief's side because the ground had made it the only choice. "Ridge," he panted, chin jerking east. "A narrow—" "We hold there or not at all." The chief glanced at the girl. She was back at his shoulder, empty-handed now, blood on her lip, not hers. "You walk." "Walk," she said. "Run," he corrected. They ran. The tribe flowed with them, a living rope knotting itself toward stone. Soldiers pressed, but slower now, the furs stealing their neat, the roots stealing their feet. At the mouth of the narrow, rocks rose like teeth. The chief and painted man took the point. Hunters fanned, arrows ready. The elder counted heads with her eyes and found too many missing. She didn't say it. She planted her stick and drew a line in dust with her toe. The lieutenant saw the choke point and the cost it would demand. His jaw set. He lifted his sword. "Forward." The chief lifted his spear in answer. "Wife," he said, not loud, "behind me." She stepped to his shadow and felt the world make a frame around the word she had spoken. Blue surged. Arrows hissed. Stone rang under bullet. A bayonet slid toward the chief's ribs. turned by the painted man's shaft at the last breath. The painted man grinned, nasty and glad to be alive. Then a crack sharper than rifles split the pass, not gun, rock. A slab above them groaned, dust sifting like flour. Scarface, somewhere high, had a pry bar in both hands. His shout fell like the slab would. "Clear!" The chief looked up, then at the lieutenant who didn't yet know the sky could fall. "Now!" the chief roared. He shoved the girl back with a palm to her belly. She stumbled into shadow as the mountain decided whose side it loved. Stone screamed as it tore free. The slab slid, split, then crashed down into the choke point with a roar that swallowed rifles and bugles alike. Dust blasted the narrow like a cannon, choking blue coats, blinding horses. Men shouted, some in pain, some in terror. The chief dragged the girl deeper into shadow before the echoes faded. She covered her ears, coughing hard, eyes wide at the cloud of grit rolling past. When the air thinned, the pass was a wall of boulders. A dozen soldiers lay buried outright. Others clawed at rubble, rifles lost, order shattered. Scarface clambered down from the ledge, hair white with dust. "They won't pass soon." His grin flashed through the grey. "Mountain fights for us." The painted man spat, face streaked. "Mountain fights because we pry it. Don't thank stone, thank hands." The chief didn't answer. His gaze swept the tribe, counting, then turned to the elder. She leaned on her stick, shoulders bent but eyes clear. She tapped it once. Move. Families shuffled forward, deeper into the cleft where firs grew tight. The girl stumbled with them, lungs raw, dress coated in dust. She looked back once, saw blue jackets digging, heard the bugle rasp, weak but stubborn. "They'll follow," she whispered. "They always do," the chief said. His hand closed around her arm again, guiding her down the trail. The painted man stalked at his other side, voice low and hot. "This is Curse. I said it. She brings soldiers like smoke brings fire." The chief halted. Dust swirled between them. "You think I fear soldiers?" "I think you blind," the rival snapped. He jabbed a finger at the girl. "Your wife makes us pray. Tomorrow more come. Next day more. Till none of us stand." The girl flinched, hugging herself. She wanted to speak, but her throat burned with dust and fear. The elder cut the air with her stick. Both men fell silent. She pointed at the girl, then at the bundled children clinging to mother's skirts. Her meaning was plain. If she carries, she stays. The girl blinked, then bent, taking a toddler from a grandmother whose arms shook. The child clung to her neck, whimpering. The girl whispered, "I've got you. Don't cry." The elder's stick rapped once. Approval. The painted man's jaw tightened, but he had no words left that didn't sound like cowardice. He stalked ahead instead, spear low, shoulders stiff. The chief watched the girl walking under the child's weight. His voice, when it came, was almost quiet. "You keep choosing." Her eyes burned, but she held them on the path. "Because I don't want to be alone again." His mouth shifted. The barest flicker. "Then you are not." The trail twisted. They reached a hollow between cliffs where a creek whispered. The tribe sank down, panting, passing water. Hunters stood guard on the rims. The girl laid the toddler in his mother's lap. Her arms trembled, but her chest felt strange, less hollow than before. She sat against stone, eyes closing for the first time in 2 nights. The chief's shadow fell over her. Sleep. One ear only. Her lips curved without meaning to. "If I dream, will you still call me that word?" "Even if you wake," he said. She slept. And on the ridge above, soldiers' lanterns bobbed again, climbing steady, their bugle muted now but patient. The mountain had bought the tribe hours, not freedom. And the chief knew, when dawn came again, the true fight, inside his people and outside, would decide whether the word wife became shield or noose. Dawn bled pale across the cliffs, turning dust to gold. The tribe stirred quietly in the hollow, fires cold. Water passed hand to hand. Children whimpered. Mothers hushed them. No one laughed. The girl woke stiff, dress crusted with soot. She blinked at the creek, at the red scars across her arms. Then she saw him, standing on the ridge, spear upright, eyes scanning the horizon. He hadn't slept. She pushed herself up, throat dry. The elder was already moving among the families, her stick tapping, counting, listening. The painted man followed close, his face set hard. When he spoke, it was for all to hear. "We are hunted. Wolves in boots come for us, for her." His hand stabbed the air toward the girl. "One breath of hers cost us 20. "How many more?" the crowd murmured. Mothers clutched children tighter. Men shifted spears uneasily. The girl's chest clenched. She hugged her knees, wishing she could vanish into stone. The chief stepped down from the ridge, dust rolling from his boots. He faced the painted man square, voice calm but cutting. "She cost us nothing. Soldiers come whether she walks or not. The fort has hunted us for years." "She draws them faster," the rival snarled. "Like meat draws flies. You blind because you want her." The words sliced the air. Gasps rippled. All eyes swung to the girl. Her mouth opened, but nothing came. The painted man pressed harder. "Look at her skin. Look at her hair. She is not us. She never will be." He slammed his palm to his chest. "Our law says blood binds, not rescue, not pity." The elder's stick cracked against stone. Silence fell. She looked from one to the other, then at the girl. "If she carries, she stays. If she fails, she goes." The girl's stomach twisted. "Carries what?" she whispered. The elder pointed her stick to a wounded man lying on a mat, his legs splintered, sweat shining on his face. "Him, to the ridge. If she is wife, she bears our burden." The girl's throat dried. The man was heavy, his breath ragged. She looked at the chief, panic rising. His eyes held hers. "You choose," he said, the same way he had in the meadow. "Wife or alone?" Her hands trembled, but she stepped forward. Kneeling, she slid under the man's arm, bracing his weight with her shoulder. Her legs shook. The bundle of muscle and pain nearly crushed her. She staggered, nearly fell. The painted man smirked. "She will drop him." The chief's voice cut clean. "No, she will not." The girl grit her teeth and took a step. Then another. Dust stung her eyes, muscles screaming. She whispered under her breath, the same word she had whispered to Cade as if it could save her too. "Stay, stay." Children watched wide-eyed. Women murmured. Men frowned, uneasy. At the ridge, she nearly collapsed. The wounded man groaned, sliding against her. She shoved her shoulder higher, breath tearing, and dragged him the last few steps until the elder's stick rapped twice on stone. "Enough," the elder said. The girl lowered him gently, knees buckling. Sweat poured down her face. She pressed her forehead to the dirt, gasping. The elder looked at her long, then tapped her stick once. Approval. Murmurs shifted. Not welcome, but not rejection. A seam of possibility. The painted man spat, furious. "A trick. Sweat and pity don't make her one of us." The elder's stick swung, cracking his shin. He hissed, hopping. The crowd laughed once, quick, releasing breath they hadn't known they held. The chief stepped forward, voice carrying. "She walked in my shadow. She carried what was given. She is mine. That is law enough." The crowd wavered. Some nodded. Some still shook their heads. But no one raised a spear. The girl lay trembling, chest heaving, dirt in her teeth. She thought she might faint. Then a hand, scarred, steady, closed around hers and pulled her up. The chief's eyes burned steady into hers. "You chose," he said. Her lips parted. She wanted to say I had no choice, but what left her throat was different. "Yes," he nodded once. "Then you stay." The elder struck her stick on stone 3 times. The tribe echoed with low voices, carrying the sound. The painted man glared, but he did not challenge again. Relief washed the girl weak. She nearly sagged into him, but forced herself upright. Around them, the camp packed in silence. The mountain trail called. But above, faint at first, then stronger, came the bugle again, closer than before. The tribe froze. Hunters cursed. Mothers pressed children flat to their skirts. The chief's hand tightened around hers. They won't stop. She met his eyes, voice hoarse but steady. Then neither will I. The bugle's cry twisted down the valley, closer now, chasing echoes off stone. A ripple of dread moved through the camp. Children whimpered, women packed faster. Hunters tightened bowstrings with hands that shook only once. The painted man spat in the dirt. They come for her, give them what they want, and we vanish. No, the chief said, calm as stone. They'll kill us all, the rival snapped, voice cracking. One pale girl is not worth a village. The elder lifted her stick, rapping it hard on stone. No more words. Proof. She turned her eyes on the girl. She say she stays. Now she show it. The girl's stomach clenched. Show, now! The elder's stick swung toward a horse tethered at the edge of camp, nostrils flaring at the bugle's sound. Ride. Carry child to canyon. If she is wife, she guards our future. A hush fell. A boy of maybe 5 was pushed forward, sleepy-eyed, clutching a scrap of cloth. His mother's hands lingered on his shoulders, trembling as she let go. The girl's throat locked. She had never ridden alone, not bareback, not with a child, but every eye was on her. The chief met her gaze. His face was unreadable, but his voice was low and even. Do you choose? Her hands shook as she lifted the boy onto the horse's back. She climbed after, skirts bunching, nearly slipping. The boy clung to her waist, silent but shaking. The painted man sneered, She will fall. Both will die. Watch, the chief said. The elder snapped her stick. Go! The girl gripped the horse's mane and kicked. The animal lunged forward, hooves tearing earth. She clung, teeth gritted, the boy's arms like iron around her ribs. The meadow blurred, rocks jutted, brush whipped her legs. She bent low, whispering, Hold me, don't let go. The boy buried his face in her back. Shouts rose behind. Soldiers broke into view, rifles flashing, bayonets bright. The bugle screamed again. One raised his weapon, aiming at the fleeing horse. Down! She cried, yanking the boy flat against the animal's neck. The shot cracked. Stone spat sparks at their side, but they flew on. The canyon mouth yawned ahead, narrow, shadowed, safe. She kicked harder, heart hammering, vision white with fear. The horse plunged into shadow, stones clattering under hooves. At the far side, hunters waited, arms outstretched. She slid the boy into their grasp, nearly falling herself. He was lifted safe, crying now but alive. She sagged against the horse's mane, chest heaving, throat raw. The hunter's eyes softened. One clapped her shoulder. Strong, he muttered. She turned back toward the meadow. Soldiers were already clashing with warriors at the tree line. Smoke rose, arrows hissed, rifles cracked. She wheeled the horse. Every instinct screamed to stay hidden. But she pulled anyway, riding back into the chaos. The painted man saw her return and barked a bitter laugh. Fool girl, she should have run. But the elder lifted her stick high. She came back. The girl slid down, dirt biting her knees, and ran to the nearest fire pit. She grabbed a brand, flames licking her skin. She held it high, voice breaking but clear. I stay, I fight with you. The camp froze a breath. Then voices rose, low, then louder. Women echoed, men shouted, spears lifted. The painted man's mouth twisted, but he could not spit this away. Even he felt the shift. The chief's eyes found hers through the smoke and gunfire. For the first time they softened. He nodded once, as if something he had wagered on had finally been proven. Then his voice thundered over the clash. Shadows close. Hold the canyon. The tribe surged as one, arrows singing, spears flashing, the girl in their midst clutching fire like a weapon she barely understood. The soldiers pressed harder, blue coats pushing, bugles screaming. But for the first time, the girl knew she was not only running, she was standing. The canyon mouth thundered with sound, rifles cracking, arrows whistling, men shouting in 2 tongues. Smoke rose, acrid, curling against stone walls. Horses screamed, iron clashed. The girl clutched her burning brand, chest heaving. Her hands shook, but she didn't let go. Around her, warriors loosed arrows in volleys. Women dragged the wounded back into shadow. The painted man fought like a storm, spear biting, face twisted with rage that was not only for soldiers. The chief stood at the front, spear whirling, every move clean, measured. He never glanced back, but his voice carried. "Shadow, stay behind me." "I am," she called, though her knees wanted to buckle. A squad of blue broke from the line, 3 men rushing toward the narrow, bayonets lowered. The girl's breath hitched. If they got through, they'd reach the children. She didn't think. She ran forward, brand blazing. She swung it into the dry grass piled near the canyon edge. Flames leapt high, sudden, crackling into a wall of fire. The soldiers cursed, veering back, rifles snapping. The tribe roared. Arrows rained over the fire, driving them further. Scarface barked a laugh. "The pale wife burns brighter than your tongue. Painted one." The painted man snarled but said nothing. The girl coughed, smoke clawing her throat. She staggered, nearly dropped the brand. A soldier broke from the haze, rifle butt swinging for her skull. But the chief's hand was there, catching the blow, twisting the weapon free. He slammed the man back into the firelit dust. "Stay close," he growled. She gasped, nodding. "I tried." "You did," he said. It was not praise. It was recognition. Another volley rang out. A boy screamed, arrow through his thigh. The girl ran to him, dragging him back, pressing cloth to the wound, though her own hands bled from heat. "Stay. Don't move," she whispered. The same word she had whispered to Cade once, now for a child not hers. The elder watched, eyes sharp. She tapped her stick once. Approval. The painted man saw it too. His jaw clenched, but he fought harder, as if drowning her out with iron. The soldiers regrouped, bugles screaming, "Advance!" again. Bayonets lowered, boots pounded. The fire she'd lit slowed them, but didn't stop them. The wall shook under weight. The chief raised his spear high, calling in Apache. Warriors pressed close, shields up, arrows spent now replaced with blades. The girl stood among them, unarmed but for her burned brand. She raised it anyway. "I stay," she cried. A soldier leapt the fire, bayonet flashing. The girl swung, sparks flying. The point slashed her arm, hot with pain. She screamed but didn't fall. The brand struck his face, flames catching his sleeve. He dropped, rolling. The tribe roared again. Spears drove forward. For a moment, blue fell back. The chief's voice carried hard as stone. "Now we break them!" He surged, the painted man at his side, despite fury. Scarface whooped, rushing in. The canyon mouth became a storm of dust and cries. The girl stumbled back, clutching her bleeding arm, but she didn't run. She pressed her hand to the wound and lifted the brand again, teeth bared. A soldier caught her eyes across the fire, rifle steady, finger white on the trigger. She froze. The crack never came. The chief's spear split the man's chest, dropping him before he could fire. The chief turned, eyes meeting hers, not gentle, not cruel, just sure. "You are wife," he said. "Now fight like one." She swallowed hard, pain searing her arm, smoke choking her lungs. She lifted the brand higher. "I will." And the canyon walls answered with the roar of a tribe that now, for the first time, shouted with her instead of at her. The soldiers reeled, their line breaking under fire and fury. The bugle screamed again, but this time it sounded like retreat. The bugle's last notes cracked thin against stone, echoing into silence. Blue coats fell back through the smoke, dragging their wounded, rifles firing wild cover. Then they were gone, shadows retreating toward the ridge, leaving only dust, blood, and the stench of powder. The canyon stilled, cries rose, pain, relief, mourning. Women hurried to bind wounds, men leaned heavy on spears. Children clutched mothers' skirts, eyes wide, some still whispering the girl's name though they barely knew it. She stood near the fire she had lit, arm bleeding, brand burned down to ember. Her body trembled, but her legs held. The boy she had carried earlier limped to her side, clutching her skirt as if claiming her as shield. The painted man stalked from the smoke, hair plastered with sweat. He spat blood into the dirt. "You see, soldiers leave AC, but they will come again. They tasted our fire. They will come with more, for her." His hand jabbed at the girl. She flinched, clutching her arm. The boy growled at the painted man, a small sound that silenced even his mother's weeping. Scarface barked a laugh. The child chooses better than you. The painted man's eyes burned. You think her fire saves us? She brings storms. She is curse. Before the crowd could turn, the elder's stick cracked 3 times on stone, faces stilled. She pointed at the girl. Curse. She bled with us. She carried child, man, and flame. Our law says, one who bleeds and bears is not stranger. The painted man snapped. Law says blood binds. The elder's eyes narrowed. She gave blood. Her stick swung to the girl's bleeding arm. Yours still waits. Gasps rippled. The painted man's jaw worked. No answer quick enough. The chief stepped forward, dust streaking his chest, spear dark with blood not his own. His voice was calm, but it carried. I named her wife. The mountain saw. The fire saw. Today she stood in our line and the enemy broke. He turned his gaze across the tribe. If she is curse, then so am I. If she is wife, then she is yours too. Choose. Silence spread, heavy as stone. Women exchanged looks. Men shifted feet. Children whispered. Then one of the grandmothers she had walked beside stepped forward. She pressed a strip of cloth to the girl's bleeding arm, hands gentle. She walks with us, others murmured. A hunter lifted his chin. She stayed when she could run. Another spat into the dirt, then nodded once. She burned soldiers. Voices gathered, uneven, but growing. The painted man snarled, desperate. She is not of us. Tomorrow they hang us for her. The elder's stick cracked against his shin. He hissed, stumbling, as laughter rippled through the weary crowd. Not cruel laughter, tired, ready to be done. The elder lifted her chin. No more words. She stays. The painted man's fury twisted, but he didn't step forward. Even he knew the moment had passed. The girl sagged, tears mixing with dust. The chief caught her before she fell. She clung to him, whispering, I tried, I didn't fail. His hand steadied her shoulder. No, you did not fail. The crowd parted, letting them through. Not cheers, not embraces, acceptance heavy and quiet, like a door unlocked. At the canyon's edge, the chief raised his spear to the sky. His voice rolled deep. Today we lost, but we still stand, and she stood with us. Remember it. The tribe echoed, low and strong. The sound filled the canyon, not triumph, but survival. The girl pressed her bandaged arm to her chest. She looked at the people around her, some still wary, some nodding, some watching with guarded eyes, and for the first time, she didn't feel entirely outside the circle. The fire behind her smoldered. The soldiers beyond the ridge would return. But for tonight, she had a place. She whispered to herself, the word that had bound her since the bear fell, the word that now belonged to more than one mouth. Wife, and the canyon, with all its blood and echoes, seemed to answer back. Night fell heavy, smoke still curling in the canyon's cracks. The tribe moved like ghosts, binding wounds, burying dead, whispering names into the dirt. No songs rose, no drums, only the hiss of fire and the creak of wood. The girl sat by the creek, arm bandaged with strips of hide. The boy she had carried earlier leaned against her side, half asleep. She stroked his hair without knowing why, the motion steadying her own racing thoughts. The chief stood on the ridge, silent, spear upright. Scarface joined him, pointing north. Lanterns, he said. Too many. The chief's jaw clenched. Cobb. Scarface nodded. And soldiers with him. The painted man climbed up after, voice sharp. They come again, stronger. Your wife brought them. If we give her, we live. The chief didn't turn. His voice was iron. If we give her, we are nothing. Better nothing than dead, the rival snapped. Better dead than broken, the chief answered. The elder's stick tapped once behind them. She had climbed quietly, eyes hard. Words waste time. They reach us by dawn. The camp rippled with fear. Mothers packed tighter. Hunters sharpened points that had already tasted battle. The girl heard the murmurs, white skin, curse, wife. The words cut, even softened by distance. She rose, heart pounding. She walked to the ridge, every step heavy, the boy clutching her skirt until she pried him off and gave him to his mother. The chief turned as she approached. Dust streaked his face, eyes steady on hers. "Why here?" he asked. "Because they want me," she said, voice shaking but loud enough. "If I go, they stop hunting you." The painted man seized the words. "Hear her, she speaks sense." The girl swallowed, forced herself to keep speaking. "If my being here kills your children, then I will walk to them myself." The tribe murmured, torn between relief and shame. The elder's stick cracked once. All fell silent. She looked at the girl. "Do you choose this?" The girl's chest rose and fell, shallow. "I choose cast not to see more die for me." The painted man smirked, victory in his eyes, but the chief stepped forward, his shadow falling over her. His voice cut low, meant for her and for all. "You think leaving saves us? It doesn't. They use you as rope. Rope drags us down. Rope strangles us. Rope never stops until it breaks." She trembled. "Then what do I do?" He leaned closer. "Stay. Fight. Not as burden, as bond." Her eyes burned. "I'm not strong enough." "You are," he said, "because you already chose." Behind them, drums began to thrum, low, steady, not for celebration but for war. Scarface spread the word. The tribe would not give her. If they bled together. Dawn broke red. Cobb rode at the head of his men, black kerchief, neat as always. Behind him stretched soldiers in blue, rifles gleaming, bayonets fixed. A wagon rolled at their center, papers and chains ready. He raised his voice, running smooth as oil. "Send the girl down, and we let you scatter. Keep her, and we burn every tree that shelters you." The painted man wavered, his eyes on the line of rifles. Mothers whispered, fear spilling from their lips. The elder lifted her stick. "Choose now." The chief raised his spear high. "We already chose." The girl stepped beside him, blood still seeping under her bandage. She lifted her chin. "I stay." Cobb laughed, harsh and thin. He raised his hand. "Then die with her." The bugle screamed, blue surged. Arrows darkened the air, spears whirled, gunfire cracked like thunder. The girl dropped low, dragging a child behind stone. She pressed her palm to the earth, whispering through the roar, "Stay. Please stay." The chief met Cobb in the clash, spear against saber, iron against will. Sparks flew, dust rose, men fell on both sides. And in the heart of the canyon, amid screams and smoke, a pale girl who had been no one stood in the line of warriors, not behind, but among, because a word had been spoken, and she had chosen to live it. The battle raged on, the outcome teetering like a blade over stone. Whether they broke or held, whether she lived or was dragged away, one truth had already carved itself into every throat that shouted that morning, she was wife, and they would fight as if it were law. The canyon was smoke and thunder until the sun stood high. Arrows sang until none were left. Rifles cracked until barrels burned. Spears shattered. Blades broke. Men fell on both sides. By noon, the bugle no longer sounded. Its brass lay twisted in the dirt, silent as the men who had blown it. Cobb's wagon smoldered, one wheel broken, papers strewn and trampled into mud. The blue line had thinned, retreating at last into the ridges. Cobb himself lay under the chief's spear, breath gone, eyes staring at a sky he could not bend. The tribe did not cheer. They stood, ash-streaked, counting their own. The elder's stick tapped names into the dirt. Each one answered with silence. Women wept without wailing. Men carried the wounded into shade. The girl sat slumped by the creek, arms raw, dress blackened. Blood caked her bandage, soot painted her hair. She thought she would never rise again. Yet when a child cried, she pushed herself up, gathered him in her lap, rocked him until he slept. The painted man limped from the smoke, spear broken, eyes hollow. For the first time he did not sneer. He looked at her long, then spat dust, not at her but at the ground. "You bled with us," he said hoarsely. "That makes you ours, whether I will it or not." He turned away before she could answer. Scarface barked a laugh, rough but not unkind. Better words than I thought I'd hear from him. The chief came last from the battlefield, shoulders heavy, spear still wet. He stopped before her, eyes unreadable. "You stood," he said. She swallowed, throat raw. "I almost ran." "But you didn't." He lowered himself onto the stone beside her. For the first time his hand brushed hers, light, brief, but real. "Now you are more than what I named you. You chose it yourself." Her eyes blurred. "What if your people never accept me?" He looked at the tribe moving in silence, burying, binding, breathing still. "They will, because they saw." The elder's stick rapped twice. She stepped forward, hair grey with ash, face set. She looked at the girl long, then pressed a pouch of cornmeal into her hands. "Wife feeds family," she said in her broken English. "Now you feed." The girl clutched it, tears hot on her cheeks. That night, the tribe sat in a wide circle. No songs, only the crackle of fire. One by one, hunters placed tokens into the flames, feathers, beads, shards of broken arrows, for those who had fallen. When her turn came, the girl placed her burned brand into the fire. Smoke curled, sparks rose. She whispered, "For all who carried me when I could not." The flames took it. When dawn broke again, the canyon lay quiet, scars cut deep, but life still moving. Children fetched water. Women ground corn. Men carved new shafts. The rhythm of survival returned. The girl rose with them, carrying wood, fetching water, sewing leather with clumsy stitches that grew straighter. Some still eyed her warily. Some nodded in passing. All had seen her stand. The chief watched from the ridge, silent as always. But when his eyes met hers across the camp, they no longer held question. They held recognition. She was no longer the stranger in the torn dress who had screamed under a bear's shadow. She was the wife he had named, and more, the wife she had chosen to be. Whether the world outside accepted it or not, here in the circle of ash and blood, it had become truth. And truth, once spoken in fire and carried through smoke, could not be taken back. She was no one until one word bound her to a people and a fate she never imagined. What would you have done? Run from the fire or carry it with her? Tell us in the comments, subscribe for more untold frontier stories, and don't miss the next tale where survival, choice, and courage collide again on the edge of history.